Hands on the wheel, just for a minute. Steady hands, Fletch, he'd say. And even if we were tied up to the dock, I felt like I was driving something real. Right before the story kicks off, tell us in the comments where you're from, city or country. It's always great to see our listeners around the world. Thanks, and on with the story. My name's Fletcher. I'm 32 now, but this started when I was 10, back before everything tipped sideways. Mom, Colette, owned a wine shop on Main Street and was always on, always glowing from a ring light, saying things like, just 20 more minutes, with her keys already in her hand. She called herself an entrepreneur. Dad called her a character. She missed most Sunday boat days. Said the river made her hair smell weird. Dad kept a logbook in the kitchen drawer, coffee-stained, always open to some scribbled page, and a cigar box full of old river junk, tags, old bolts, tiny brass weights. I asked him once what they were worth. He said, "Nothing to you, everything to me." He always told me things didn't have to be fancy, just honest and on time. That last summer was hot as sin. Our back door stuck every morning, and Dad finally took a screwdriver to the latch. He muttered and grunted at it like it had offended him personally. When it finally clicked into place, he gave out this rough laugh that stayed in my head for years after. Monday morning, before the sun even came up, he kissed the top of my head. His jacket smelled like cinnamon gum and diesel fuel. I told him I'd clean up the garage if he made it home for dinner. He said, "Deal." He never came home. A barge heading upbound took a wide turn in fog, real bad visibility. His tug got pinned hard into the bend. I heard the deckhands whisper about it after. They said it was quick, like he never even knew it happened. I didn't go to school that week. No one really said I had to, or that I didn't. I just didn't. The funeral felt fake. Big flowers, wrong music, some man from the port giving a eulogy like he'd ever spent a full hour with my dad. I sat stiff in a black shirt I didn't want to wear, with Miss Irene, the Spanish teacher from next door, holding my shoulder like I might fly off if she let go. That's when I first saw Harvey, Dad's older brother. Captain's hat, leather palms, same hands as Dad. He showed up quiet, just watched me for a minute before saying, "We'll talk soon, Fletch." His wife, Roberta, had these solid hands when she shook mine, like she could carry a rope through a storm if she had to. Colette cried big for the crowd, sobbed loud right into a tissue. But by the graveside, I watched her shift gears like she always did. She asked one of the port guys if he had access to Dad's business files. "The forwarding accounts, the invoices, the ledger," she said, like it was just another Monday. I was 10, but I still remember the look on her face. Not grief, not even stress. Focus. That was it. Like she was already thinking 10 moves ahead, and none of them involved me. I didn't cry much after that. I stayed in my room, stared at Dad's cigar box and the blank spot at the table, and waited for someone to tell me what came next. No one did. The same week the insurance check came in, just a few thousand from Dad's policy. Colette moved his office desk out to the garage and posted an ad online for River Freight Consulting. She used his photo. Same smile, same cap, same backdrop. Only the name was different. Colette River Solutions. I stood in the hallway, watching her record a video pitch with ring lights on either side of her face like spotlights. I asked her, "What are you going to do if someone actually calls?" She didn't even look at me. "Figure it out," she said. "That's what grown-ups do." His two best guys, Roger and Pete, stuck around for 2 weeks before they walked out. Checks bounced. Phones got ignored. I heard Pete call her a fraud on his way out the door. I just kept my head down and swept the garage, like that might be enough to keep the walls from caving in. Then one night, she brought home Randall. He had the kind of handshake that made you feel like you were at a job interview you didn't apply for. Clean white shirt, creased khakis, shoes like he never scuffed them once. After shaking my hand, he looked around our hallway like it offended him personally. "This place needs order," he said. "You've let things slide." I didn't know what to say. I just stood there holding a bowl of cereal, wondering who the hell you was. 2 days later, he was back again. Then again. Then he didn't leave. And with him came a parade. Randall's mother, Bernice, tight bun, thin lips, eyes like a hawk looking for receipts. His sister Yvonne, fake smiling all the time, her voice sugary like she was trying to sell you something. Yvonne's daughter, Marin, 12, loud, always asking for snacks. And Randall's son, Rowan. He didn't talk much, maybe 15, maybe 16. We locked eyes once during that first dinner. Neither of us smiled. A week in, the pantry got a padlock. Randall called it discipline and said, "Rationing builds appreciation." I stood in front of the padlock with a can of soup in my hand and asked, "So I gotta ask permission to eat now?" He said, "You need to learn boundaries." They swapped my bedroom door too, reversed the hinges so it opened into the hall. No way to lock it. Bernice carried the only key to the new doorknob on a ribbon around her neck, like it was her job to guard it. She called it supervision. Then the utility bills showed up in my name. Electric, gas, water, all of it. Randall said it was to teach you responsibility. I didn't know what that meant until I opened a late notice and saw my own name in bold letters at the top. I took it to Colette and said, "This shouldn't be in my name. I'm 12. She didn't even look up from her phone. "Well, then you better stay on top of them," she said. "Adult things come fast." They made me ride with Marin across town 3 nights a week for violin, then tumbling, sometimes cheer clinic. Always something. Rowan had to come with us, but he didn't talk, just sat beside me in silence while we both watched the clock. I missed 2 ball practices before I realized I wasn't going anymore. I brought it up once, and Yvonne said, "Everyone has to pitch in." "You're not a little prince." I found a school form one day on the printer. Enrollment for a different middle school. Better district. Better test scores. Bernice had used our address. My name was listed as Marin's guardian contact. I brought it to Randall, asked what it was doing there. He didn't even flinch. "Mind your lane, Fletcher. You don't make enrollment decisions." Colette nodded from the kitchen like she'd already signed off on it. Miss Irene showed up one afternoon with grilled cheese and a packet of math homework. She smelled like detergent and comfort. I sat at the table with her while she explained fractions. Randall walked in, looked her up and down, and said, "This isn't needed anymore." Irene glanced at me, then back at him. "I'm just here to help Fletcher." Colette stepped in and said, "We've got it under control, Irene. You can go." She said it like Irene was a babysitter, not the only person in that house who still saw me as a kid. Garbage day. 2 weeks later, I spotted Dad's cigar box sticking out of the bin. Some of his old river books were jammed between cardboard and takeout containers. The box was empty except for one stained operations manual and a crumpled slip of paper that fluttered out when I yanked it back. The watch was gone. I sat in the garage that night with the manual in my lap and my heart banging against my ribs. I shoved both pieces under my pillow and lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the laughter and glasses clinking in the kitchen. That night, Colette posted a video. I watched it from the hallway. She sat by the window, rosé in hand, talking to her phone about resilience, about navigating hardship with grace. She called herself a survivor. In the kitchen, Randall was pouring himself tea and talking to Bernice. "He'll come around," he said, voice low, "once the boy's options are made clear." Bernice replied, "It's about shaping him early." That's the key. I stood there barefoot, my toes curling on the cold tile, and I knew. They weren't raising me. They were positioning me. I turned 13 with a sheet cake from the grocery store and a pack of candles someone forgot to light. Yvonne sprayed so much perfume you could taste it in the frosting. Colette wore a white blouse like she was hosting a brunch, not her kid's birthday. Randall sat at the head of the table like it was his house, which, by that point, I guess it was. Harvey and Roberta came wearing their port jackets, salt-stained and stiff from the wind. Harvey's hair had gone more gray since the funeral, but he still stood straight and looked people in the eye. Randall didn't even shake his hand, just gave him this glazed-over nod and turned to rearrange the silverware. We did cake before dinner, like they wanted it over with. Colette clinked a spoon on her mug, smiling tight, and cleared her throat like she was calling a meeting. "So," she said, "we've been thinking about a solution, something that supports Fletcher's growth and the household dynamic." She sounded like one of her videos, fake calm, way too smooth. "I just don't think he's thriving in this environment," she went on. "And Harvey, Roberta, maybe it would be good for him to stay with you for a while. Just temporarily, of course. Like I was a storage bin she was ready to shove into someone else's garage." I stared at her. She wouldn't even look at me. Harvey pushed his chair back so hard it scraped the floor and fell over behind him. He didn't care. "We'll take him," he said, already standing. Roberta reached across the table, took my hand, and squeezed it once. Her other hand grabbed her phone like she was preparing for war. Bernice sniffed, loud and deliberate, like someone had brought trash to the table. "I believe this is premature," she said. "We've had no formal discussion." "We don't need one," Harvey cut in. "You people turned his bedroom into a hallway closet and put your damn bills in his name." Randall held up both hands like he was defusing a bomb. "Let's not make this emotional. This is just a temporary shift in custody. We've prepared documentation. Nothing is being forced here." "Then repeat it," Roberta said, setting her phone flat on the placemat. She hit record. "Say it again, Colette. All of it." For clarity, Colette blinked once, looked between Randall and the phone, then straightened her shoulders like she was reading a press release. "We are placing Fletcher with Harvey and Roberta. We are not a fit for his needs, and frankly, he disrupts the home. This is better for everyone." She said it like it was a favor, like she was giving me a break, not shoving me out of her life. I remember the way her face looked, relieved, like a weight had been lifted, not a tear, not a shake in her voice. She looked like she'd just canceled a subscription she forgot she had. A knock came at the back door. Roberta went to check, and I followed behind her out of instinct. It was Irene, standing there in a rain jacket, holding a Tupperware of something warm. Her eyes scanned our faces and locked on mine. "I heard it was his birthday," she said, holding the dish out to Roberta. "Tell him I'm proud of him." She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out a plain envelope, and leaned close. "Give this to Fletcher when he's safe." Not before Roberta nodded and tucked the envelope into her bag without opening it. "Back inside," Harvey said. "Get your things. Only what matters. We'll come back for the rest." I went straight to my room, but Bernice was already standing in the hallway, arms crossed, that damn ribbon key swinging like a warning. "No one's going anywhere," she said. "Custody must be confirmed through proper channels." She really thought she could lock me in. "Move, Bernice," Harvey said from behind me. His voice had that low tugboat engine growl. "You have no legal standing," she barked back. "This isn't how it works." Roberta had already dialed. She handed the phone to Harvey. "County hotline says voluntary placement is lawful under emergency family conditions," Harvey said, holding the phone out like a badge. "We're not stealing him. We're saving him." Roberta pressed the phone to Colette's face and hit record again. "Do you agree to voluntary placement of your son into the care of Harvey and Roberta?" Colette didn't even hesitate. "Yes, that's what we're doing." It got real quiet after that. Randall walked off into the living room like he'd washed his hands. Yvonne and Marin stayed upstairs. Rowan appeared by the base of the staircase and leaned on the banister, eyes following me. Roberta grabbed 2 duffels and filled them like a machine. Jeans, shirts, socks, toothbrush. She even took the manual and the slip from under my pillow and zipped them into the side pocket. I went to the stairs, duffels in hand, and Rowan stepped down one, pulled something from his hoodie pocket and held it out. "Portable charger," he said. "You'll need it. Text me when you land." It wasn't much, but it was more than anyone else in that house had done for me in months. "Thanks," I said, stuffing it into my bag. "You okay?" He shrugged, still figuring that out. We slipped out after dark. Harvey backed the truck into the driveway like he was doing a dock maneuver. Roberta helped me up into the cab and buckled the strap across my chest like I was 10 again. I didn't even argue. I couldn't stop shaking. As we pulled out, I looked back over my shoulder. The house, the porch, the windows, the fake little sign on the door that said, "Home is where the wine is," shrunk in the mirror until it didn't look like mine anymore. It looked like a trap someone else escaped from. Roberta had the heat on low and a blanket folded at the end of the bed before I even got my duffels unzipped. The sheets were warm, smelled like lemon soap, and the window cracked open just enough to let in a long whistle from upriver. 3 blocks from the port. I could hear the ropes creak against the cleats. Felt like home, even before I said the word out loud. Next morning, she was already in the kitchen when I walked in. "Sit," she said, setting a plate of bacon and toast on the table. "Eat. The world can wait." I hadn't had a warm breakfast in months, not unless you counted microwave waffles. Harvey came in wiping grease from his hands and nodded at the plate. "If you finish that fast, we can hit the county office before the lines get dumb." He wasn't kidding. We sat in hard chairs for hours under flickering lights, while Roberta laid out her yellow folder like it was a court exhibit. The lady behind the glass said, "It'll take a few days, but we got a stamped placement before we even left the building." A week later, a judge signed off on temporary guardianship. Said it clean, no drama. Harvey and Roberta Tulliver, guardians of minor Fletcher Ray. I didn't expect it to hit as hard as it did. I felt my shoulders drop for the first time in months, like I'd been carrying something I didn't know I had. They didn't throw me a party, just brought home ribs and coleslaw and let me pick the movie. It was more than enough. School started a week later at the public middle school on the hill. New teachers, new lockers, new kids. I didn't know anyone, but I knew the bus driver. He used to run parts to the docks. He looked at me through the mirror and said, "You're Harvey's boy, right?" I nodded. "Yes, sir." He smiled. "Then you'll be fine." And I believed him. Roberta didn't let anything slide. She handled paper like it owed her something, took every utility bill Randall had dumped in my name, laid them out on the kitchen table, and marked everyone with highlighter and Post-its. Then we drove to the credit office in town. She stood there in a blazer and jeans, that folder under her arm, and made the woman behind the desk walk back the whole thing. "You let an adult put utilities in a 12-year-old's name," Roberta said. "You're fixing it." And they did. One day at school, someone handed me a folded sheet of paper. Looked like a Spanish quiz. I opened it, and tucked inside was a Post-it. Just 5 words in Irene's handwriting. "Proud of you." Stay close, I folded it back up and stuck it in my wallet. I carried it there for years. Saturdays, Harvey let me tag along to the port. He ran a small crew doing dock maintenance. Bollards, ropes, cleats, ladders. Hard stuff. First few weeks, I mostly painted metal and kept out of the way. I wasn't strong enough yet, but I showed up, didn't complain, and learned fast. They started calling me by name. I still remember the first time one of the guys yelled, "Fletch, hand me that line," like I was just another set of hands. Not a favor, not a charity case, just part of the crew. At night, Roberta sat me at the kitchen table and handed me these fake ledgers, made-up companies with missing receipts and bad math. "Find the lie," she'd say, setting a pencil in front of me. It felt like a game at first. I didn't realize until later she was showing me how to track truth through numbers. She never preached. Just let the numbers do the talking. One night, I finally asked about the envelope Irene gave her. Roberta didn't act surprised. Just walked to her filing cabinet, pulled it from a sleeve, and set it down on the table. Inside was a photocopy of a business sale form, Colette's name printed at the bottom. Looked official, but the math didn't line up. The total sale price was way too low, like someone skimmed it down to nothing on purpose. There was also a crumpled pawn shop stub. Address 2 towns over. Item description, gold watch, initialed. I stared at it. Said nothing for a long time. We'll keep it safe, Roberta said. She slid it back into the sleeve like it might break. A few months later, Colette signed over her rights. No court fight, no call, no final conversation. Just a form. Roberta read it once, then handed it to the court clerk. The clerk called it efficient. I wanted to feel relief. And I did. Mostly. But it stung too. Like a slap that doesn't leave a mark. Harvey didn't say much that day. Just bought us both soft serve cones and parked by the river like he did when he was a kid. We sat on the tailgate and watched a barge turn the bend without saying anything for almost 20 minutes. That kind of silence felt better than any speech. That night, for the first time since Dad, I slept straight through. No bracing for footsteps, no kitchen lights flicking on at midnight, no voices planning what to do with me like I wasn't in the next room. When I woke up, Roberta was already humming in the kitchen. Harvey was at the table, bootlaces half done, reading the port log. The coffee maker hissed in the background. A low towboat blast rolled up the channel. I sat up, stretched, and just listened. That house had real walls, solid ones. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't just surviving. I had my footing. By the time I hit high school, I felt like I'd finally come up for air. I ran cross-country because the tug crews kept telling me my mouth was faster than my legs. Roberta signed the permission slip and said, "Fine, but no whining when your calves seize." I joined debate too. She said if I was going to argue anyway, I might as well get a ribbon for it. We didn't have much money, but everything was solid. No leaks in the roof, no sideways glances in the kitchen, no padlocks on the food. I didn't need much more than that. Harvey started taking me on the tug in the summers. Not just as a tag-along anymore. He called it a deckhand in training and paid me real wages. He made me keep a notebook. "One mistake you remember is worth a dozen you forget," he'd say. "Write 'em down." I learned knots with thick rope and gloves on, bowlines, cleats, hitches. He made me repeat them blindfolded in the garage until I could do them in my sleep. "Don't just be fast," he told me. "Be steady." River don't care about fast. At first I thought it was just about the boat. Later I realized he meant everything. Randall didn't vanish. He sent citations to Harvey for nonsense. Fence too close to property line, unsecured ladder, improper trailer positioning. One time, it was because a single picket on the side fence leaned out an inch too far. We kept every letter. Roberta punched holes in them and slid them into a binder labeled Randall. Harvey called it our little war journal. "Don't react. Just record," he'd say. "People like that want drama. Give them paper instead." Bernice showed up once. She pulled into the port lot like she owned it, clipboard in hand, camera strapped to her chest. I was sweeping the dock and saw her angling to get shots of our yard from across the chain link. Harvey walked out calm, said, "You've got 3 seconds to leave or I call the harbor patrol." She snapped one more picture and said, "I'll go to the higher-ups." Roberta stepped outside, hands on her hips. "I am the higher-up of this lot," she said. "Now get back in your car." Bernice drove off with her mouth clenched and tires squealing. She never came back. It rained hard one Saturday, and Roberta came home from some library fundraiser with a plastic box under her coat, full of river books someone donated. She let me dig through it before she started cataloging. Near the bottom, stuck between a barge manual and an outdated port log, was a water-warped copy of Pilot Rules. Inside the front cover were my dad's initials, W.R., scrawled in Sharpie. I froze. Roberta leaned over my shoulder. "His writing?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "No question." Tucked between the back pages was a letter, folded neat and square. The ink was faded, but the lines were clean. He'd written it when I was 9, dated the same week he got that last contract. He wrote about the river, about how it gives and takes. He told me to take care of my hands because you only get 2, to stand up straight, to speak honest even when it costs you, and to keep our name clean because names are the only thing that outlive you. I read it twice alone, then took it to Harvey. We sat on the back step in the dusk, while a distant barge whistle echoed around the bend. He read it slow, didn't say anything for a long time. Then he handed it back and said, "He'd be proud, Fletch. You're doing it." That was enough. Senior year hit harder. I stayed late in the computer lab most nights, chasing extra credit in accounting and trying to finish a community college course Roberta had pushed me into. She said, "College won't wait for you to figure out how to learn. Do it now." She wasn't wrong. One afternoon after practice, I saw Maureen at a cross-country meet. She stood near the bleachers with a group of girls in matching jackets, acting like she didn't see me. She had on fake lashes and loud shoes, same voice as always. I didn't say anything. Rowan sat a few rows up, hoodie over his head, looking tired but solid. He caught my eye and gave me a nod. Just one. That was enough. That night I got a text from a new number. "Keep going." I texted back. "You too." Right after graduation, Harvey and Roberta made it official. We didn't dress up for court, just clean jeans and decent shirts. The judge looked over the paperwork, asked a couple of questions, then stamped it and stood up to shake my hand. "Congratulations, Mr. Tulliver," he said. Harvey put his arm around my shoulder as we walked out. "Son," he said, real low. First time he said it like that, like it had always been there. I didn't say anything back. The moment said it for me. We hit the diner after. I was still in that post-graduation haze, hungry but not quite. Roberta slid a manila envelope across the table to me like it was a birthday card. Inside was a small stack of cash, payout from a life insurance policy Dad had set up for business loss, back before things went south. Not much, but more than I'd ever held in my hands. Under the cash was a typed list: scholarships, grants, local aid programs, deadlines highlighted in green. "I hunted these down," Roberta said. "You've got more options than you think." I held that envelope like it might tear if I breathed too hard. It felt like a bridge, not a handout, a step. That night I tucked Dad's letter into the same drawer where I kept my scholarship forms. I wasn't sentimental by habit, but some things didn't belong folded away. They belonged nearby, ready to be read again when things got loud. I'd made it through. Not clean, not untouched, but still upright. And for the first time, the future felt like something I could walk into with my own name on the paperwork. We got back from graduation, and I set the envelope with the scholarship stubs and Dad's policy money on the kitchen counter like it was something that could tip over and spill if I wasn't careful. Roberta nodded at it once and said, "Use it like a lever, not a parachute." I went to State University, hour north, clean campus, half-decent accounting program, close enough that Roberta could still threaten to swing by with soup if I didn't call. Harvey acted like he didn't miss me, but he kept finding reasons to be in the area whenever my laundry built up. I majored in accounting because it felt like power, real, quiet power. You see how money moves, you see who's hiding behind it. Sophomore year, I landed a state auditor's office internship. Nothing flashy, mostly data entry and scan jobs, a cheap desk in the corner. I didn't talk much, just watched, learned who whispered when I walked past, learned that low priority sometimes meant don't look too close. Nobody paid attention to the intern unless I asked dumb questions, so I didn't ask any. I just watched what they opened, what they rushed, what they filed and never touched again. Late one night, I dug into my own file. Roberta had frozen my college fund when she got guardianship, just to be safe. But the record showed it had already been drained long before she even got me. Emptied 7 years earlier into something called Colette Media Group LLC. It had a pretty logo and no actual business. The statement showed transfers labeled development, branding, equipment, but no receipts. Just disappearing dots. I printed it, folded it, and slid it into the back of my notebook. My supervisor, small guy named Donnelly, showed me how to find state-level asset declarations. He never gave legal advice, just circled codes in the book and said, "You didn't hear it from me, but page 74 has some stuff that'll piss you off." I wrote down the statute numbers, filed them in a drawer. I wasn't going to throw away the internship being stupid, but I wasn't going to forget either. Weekends, I worked a tax clinic that helped low-income filers. Walk-ins mostly. Messy paperwork, handwritten mileage logs, late fees stacked high. That's where I met Noelle. She had a stack of 1,099s and a nurse's badge, looked exhausted, and argued with me about whether she could deduct her orthopedic shoes as a medical expense. I told her, "You're standing on your feet for 14 hours. If that's not a business expense, I don't know what is." She narrowed her eyes and said, "You're not a CPA." "Yet," I said. We argued through April, started texting in May, went out once finals ended. Junior year, I finally picked up Irene's pawn stub from the folder, called the shop, didn't expect much. The guy on the phone sounded like he'd smoked since birth, said he remembered a blonde lady with a podcast voice who'd pawned a men's gold watch with scratched initials. "Too late to get it back," he said. "That thing's been gone a long time." But I remember who bought it. Collector guy, 2 towns west. Weird taste, paid cash, I said thanks, hung up and sat there for a minute. Next Sunday, Harvey drove me out there. Narrow roads, warehouses, metal signs faded from rain. The guy had a storefront that looked like an antique shop for electricians. He let us in, listened to our pitch, and said he had boxes of watches, but no clue what was where. "If I see anything with WR scratched in it, I'll give you a call," he said. "But I'm not holding anything." I left my number, shook his hand, and didn't hold my breath. A week later, I got a letter at my dorm. Cheap envelope. From Randall. Inside was a typed page about reconciliation and educational support if I'd consider coming home weekends to help the family. He threw in a line about restoring relationships and helping Maren adjust. I threw it out. Rowan was still texting me. Not often, but enough. Said Maren was enrolled in some magnet school using our old address and asked if that could backfire. I told him to be careful. If anyone called asking about residency, keep me out of it. He just replied, "Got it." Noelle and I got serious after midterms. She had no patience for bullshit, worked extra shifts to cover her sister's rent, and could out-debate me on student loan interest rates. She saw the binder once, the one with all the letters Randall had sent Harvey, and asked why we kept it. "In case it ever matters," I said. She said, "Smart." Senior year, I started staying late at the auditor's office. Some weeks shadowing legal review, some helping prep statements before public release. One of the legal assistants, a guy named White, pulled me aside one afternoon and asked if I'd ever heard of civil demands under bad faith asset reallocation. I said, "In theory." He nodded, shut the door and said, "Off the clock. This is what I'd tell a friend. If money meant for a minor was redirected into a personal LLC and that LLC was non-productive, you might have a case." "What kind of case?" I asked. "The kind where you hire a real lawyer." After finals, I brought it to Roberta. She read it twice, slow, glasses halfway down her nose. Then she said, "After finals." And that was that. Graduation was held at the county fairgrounds, under a metal pavilion with folding chairs and no shade. I wore the cord Roberta ordered online, even though I said it looked dumb. She made me wear it anyway. When I walked across that stage and shook hands with the dean, I saw Harvey near the back, clapping like I'd just knocked one out of the park. Noelle found me in the parking lot after. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "What now?" I looked at her and said, "We build something that lasts." I started work the Monday after graduation, button-down shirt and a badge on a blue lanyard that said Forensic Accounting Division, Office of the State Attorney General. Title was just accountant, but the job was real. Follow the money cases, public records, dirty contracts, no fluff. I kept my personal history out of it. Didn't use my backstory for brownie points. I clocked in, pulled files, logged audits, cross-checked receipts. I knew the kind of people who watched for weakness, and I wasn't giving them a handle. 3rd month in, a tip came through the intake desk about a municipal office skimming inspection fees, tiny overcharges, all rounded cash, hundreds of little dents no one notices until you zoom out. The forms came through the scan queue, and I stopped dead reading them. I knew the formatting. I knew the phrasing. Building Safety Compliance Office, North District. Randall's shop. I flagged the file, walked it straight to the chief investigator and said, "This might involve someone tied to me personally." "Family?" he asked, already flipping through. "Not by choice," I said. He looked me over once, then nodded. "You're recused." Hand it down the hall I did. Never touched it again. But I watched. Everything filed publicly. I read like it was gospel. A subpoena landed on the HOA that Bernice used to brag about. Then another one, about allocations, funds, conflict of interest forms she never filed right. Randall was listed as a supervisory liaison. Not anymore. 2 months later, a short notice came out in the local paper. Randall had been reassigned for training and internal development. The city park board absorbed half his inspection authority. Page 3. No photo, no comment. Roberta framed the clipping. Then she hired a civil lawyer with a stiff jaw and no fear of messy math. The guy combed through the documents Irene had saved, the botched business sale form from the envelope, and every deposit into Colette's LLC that shouldn't have existed in the first place. Consulting, they'd labeled it. Sloppy, unregistered payments, no proof of service, no asset logs. The broker who'd handled the sale tried to get cute, said it was out of scope. Roberta pulled up a chain of emails with him copying Colette directly. The guy's lawyer folded so fast it should have been illegal. He took a private settlement to avoid a complaint. Colette caved next. She tried to start high. Roberta let her run her mouth, then slid a packet of flagged transactions across the table. Colette's lawyer barely opened it before leaning in to whisper something that made her face sour up. She settled for $83,950. Not what Dad's business was worth, not even close, but it made a point. I signed the check over to the trust Roberta had created in my name. Warren's Line, Fletcher Tulliver. That was the official title. 2 weeks later, the collector from 2 towns over called, said he'd bought a storage unit filled with river junk, tools, parts, old slips. At the bottom of a rusted-out tackle box wrapped in a towel, he'd found a scratched-up men's watch. Initials on the back, WR. "You want it?" he asked. I didn't even ask how much. I just drove. When he handed it to me, I had to sit down on his porch. The metal was cold. The scratches were worse than I remembered. One initial looked like it had been redone with a bent nail. But it was his. I paid cash, full price, no haggling. Drove home in silence with the box on the passenger seat. We spent the next month fixing everything. Roberta filed disputes on every ghost bill left from Randall's stunts. The utilities, the false late notices, the credit marks. Most companies caved fast once they saw the age listed on the accounts. Minor, she'd circle in red on every form. At time of account opening. She wrote letters like scalpels, clean, sharp, no wasted movement. The credit marks disappeared, like they'd never been there. That fall, Colette started posting online again, talking about growth, healing, forgiveness. She called herself a survivor of family estrangement, made it sound like I abandoned her for nothing. In one post, she called me her son the lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. She just figured it sounded better than the kid I dumped and tried to cash in on. She messaged me directly. "I hope you finally learned some respect." I blocked her, printed the post, filed it under legal, potential defamation. Not that I planned to use it, but just in case. Around the same time, Rowan reached out. He asked if I'd write him a letter of recommendation for a maintenance crew job at the port. No fluff, just work. Said he needed something steady that didn't involve anyone watching him too close. I wrote it. Simple, clear, honest. He got the job. After that, he started swinging by Harvey's slip every now and then. He'd bring tools, talk shop. We didn't say much about where he came from. We talked ropes and rust and repair schedules. It was enough. Maren was still loud online. She posted pictures from a new school, 2 districts over. In one, she was holding a Spirit Week form. I zoomed in on the details. There it was. my old address, still being used. I showed it to Roberta. She just looked at it, then looked at me. "Your call," she said. "I'm done," I told her. "It's not my fight anymore." We didn't report it. Not because we couldn't. Because I didn't care enough to keep chasing ghosts. I was out. I was clean. I'd done what I came to do. And for the first time in years, I could walk past a mirror and not see somebody else's mess hanging on my shoulders. I slept the night before our wedding like I was 10 years old again. No alarms, no pacing. Just quiet air and the faint hum of barge horns in the distance. I woke up clear, chest light, hands steady. Noelle and I had picked the loft together. The old freight terminal they'd turned into an event space. Brick walls, iron beams, high windows with streaks of morning sun. The kind of place my dad would have liked. Real structure, built to carry weight. We'd planned it simple. Ceremony in the big room, reception out by the river gate. Roberta built the vendor spreadsheet with more tabs than seemed legal. Harvey met the caterer and spent 20 minutes talking about steam ventilation, like he was diagnosing a barge engine. Noelle's folks offered to help 3 separate times, so we put them in charge of flowers and chairs. They didn't complain once. We kept the guest list tight. Real names, no fillers. Irene's invitation was hand-delivered. She opened it right there at her kitchen table, glasses hanging off her nose, and said, "You better say something in Spanish at the rehearsal dinner." "I'll try not to butcher it too bad," I told her. She smiled and said, "You better not cry until after the toast." A week before the wedding, Colette messaged me from a new account. She said she was still my mother, and that she'd be taking her rightful place at the wedding. Randall followed up with a note about protocols for family representation. Bernice's email was one line. "I expect a seat with family." I wrote back one time. One email. No anger, no build-up. "You're not invited. You're not family to me. If you show up, you'll be removed." That was it. Roberta sent the same message from her office, printed on letterhead, just to be safe. Legal backup, no confusion. A day later, Rowan texted me a screenshot from a group chat. Bernice had typed, "No gate can keep a grandmother out." She used that exact phrasing. Rowan added, "I won't be there with them." Got asked to work a double that day anyway. I just replied, "Smart." The week of the wedding, Randall got hit with a notice. City's external accounting firm was auditing his department. Public contract, standard rotation. Nothing to do with me. Still, he posted some nonsense online about witch hunts and bureaucrats with grudges. People in town rolled their eyes. The rehearsal dinner was short. Casual, sliders, coleslaw, local beer. Irene gave a toast half in Spanish, half in pure sass. Everyone laughed. Harvey stood near the door the whole time, arms crossed, looking like a tug captain guarding cargo. As we were leaving, he pulled me aside and handed me a small velvet pouch. "Tomorrow," he said. Nothing else. Didn't need to. Noelle gave my arm a squeeze and said, "I think I know what's in it." I asked, "Should I peek?" She shook her head. "Wait. It'll hit better that way." We got back to the house and I laid out my shirt and jacket on the bed like I was still a kid on the first day of school. Shoes lined up, belt curled, watch face blank. I didn't check my phone. I didn't think about Bernice or Colette or whether someone might try to pull a scene. I'd lived long enough to know that peace wasn't something you waited for. It was something you defended, and I knew how to do that now. Without yelling. The morning came bright, breeze sliding off the river like a soft fan across the brick of the loft walls. I was already up, suit pressed, cufflinks double-checked. Roberta came in with lint tape and a mug of coffee she didn't let me touch until I stood still long enough for her to attack my sleeves. Then she wrapped me in a hug that cracked every rib I had. "You good?" she asked. "I'm solid," I said. And I was. At the terminal, the crew was setting up chairs, music cables, and little bags of rose petals Noelle's mom insisted on. Everything ran smooth, until the security guy at the front booth radioed Noelle's dad. He handed me the walkie. "For you." "Go ahead," I said into it. "There's a group at the river gate," the guy said. Woman in heels, older man with a clipboard, and a lady yelling about being immediate family. Said you'd know them. I handed the radio back. Harvey didn't ask, just started walking. We reached the river gate 5 minutes later. It was the old steel kind, chain and padlock across the bars. Colette had both hands wrapped around it like she was trying to shake it open with pure nerve. Her heels clicked against the concrete when she turned toward me. Randall stood off to the side, arms crossed, chest puffed up like he was on patrol. Bernice clutched a manila folder like she was here to file charges. "Fletcher," Colette said, "this isn't how we should start the day." "You owe me—" "I don't owe you anything," I cut in. "I stopped being your son the day I packed a duffel and walked out that house." Randall stepped forward. "You can't keep people out of a public facility. We have rights. I'm here to inspect safety compliance." Harvey laughed out loud, deep and sharp. "Only thing unsafe here is your judgment." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "This gate's under a private event permit. If you step past it, security will escort you off-site. If you have legal concerns, mail them to Roberta's office. Otherwise, leave." Bernice narrowed her eyes. "Ungrateful doesn't begin to cover it. We raised you. You forget that? You used my name to open utilities when I was 12. We recovered every penny, and then some. If you want to talk numbers, we can talk numbers, but not today." Her mouth opened, then clicked shut like her jaw locked. Colette switched gears fast. She always had. Her voice softened. "Marin needs support, Fletcher. She's having a hard year. Rowan, too. They're struggling." I shook my head. "Rowan's working. He earned it. And if you cared about Marin, you'd stop using her as bait. Don't drag them into your pitch." Randall stepped forward again. "You think this badge makes you untouchable?" "No," I said, "but it makes me patient." "Which is worse for you." Behind us, 2 security staff approached, calm, hands at their sides. One nodded toward the parking area. "We'll need you all to head back to your vehicles now." Randall puffed up. "Jurisdiction!" Then the harbor patrol rolled up in a golf cart. Young guy, bored and clear-eyed, pulled out a citation pad and said, "Clear the path or I'll cite for trespass and obstruction." Your choice. Randall moved. So did Bernice. Colette lingered a second, then let go of the bars and turned without a word. Back inside, the light coming through the loft windows hit just right. Everything golden, warm, alive. Harvey waited by the doors, holding the velvet pouch. He handed it to me. I opened it with both hands like it was glass. Inside was Dad's watch. Cleaned, ticking. The initials were still there. Scratched rough, permanent. "I had it cleaned," Harvey said. "Figured it was time." I fastened it on my wrist. Couldn't talk for a full minute. Then I nodded. He nodded back. We lined up near the arch. Noelle looked calm, eyes soft, hands steady. The flowers in her hair matched the color on her mom's dress. Irene gave me a quick thumbs up from her seat, then wiped under her eye like she was pretending not to cry. When the music started, Harvey stepped forward, arms steady, his hand gripping mine like he always had when things felt unsteady. We walked slow even, through the room toward the river light pouring in from the windows. I felt the weight of the watch on my wrist. I felt the gate behind me, closed and locked. And when I looked at Noelle, I didn't feel revenge or payback or the past chasing me. I felt quiet. I felt right. I'm 56 now, and I still live in the same river town. The tugs have changed. Crews cycle in and out. But the water doesn't care. It keeps moving. Same bend, same stubborn pull around the docks. I go down to the terminal some mornings, just to hear the horns roll out across the yard. It still hits me right in the chest. Noelle and I bought a little house 2 blocks off the bluff. Wood siding, metal roof, creaky floors that complain in winter. She says the creaking means the place is still breathing. I believe her. We never needed big, just something solid. Every Sunday we have stew with Harvey and Roberta, and half the time someone from the port drops in without warning. Noelle keeps extra bowls in the cupboard on purpose. I kept my badge clean. Worked a lot of cases. Nothing flashy, nothing viral, just slow burn fraud, misused grant money, bad books. You'd be amazed how many lies start with someone saying, "I just moved one little thing to cover a gap." People want to think white-collar crime is clean. It's not. It's always sticky. Desperate hands on a spreadsheet at 2 a.m., convincing themselves it's just this once. I never needed to be a headline. I just needed to be the guy they couldn't lie to twice. Colette tried again, once. Sent a letter around the holidays, said she'd like to rebuild. Roberta opened it, read it once, and slid it into a return envelope with a typed note that said, "No contact requested." Again, it went quiet after that. Rumor said they sold the house and moved inland. Rental property, smaller place. I didn't ask. Ran into Randall in the grocery store last winter. I was picking sweet potatoes. He came around the corner by the dairy case, saw me, and looked right through like I was a shelf label. I let him. He had nothing I needed, and I was too busy figuring out dinner. Someone told Harvey that Bernice passed. Heart thing. Quiet, at home. I didn't feel much when I heard. No guilt, no joy. Just that cold space where a chapter used to be. Marin still posts like she's on a talk show. Life updates, lectures, quotes about overcoming things she never admits to doing. I don't engage. I scroll past and move on. That's enough. Rowan stayed at the port. Started with basic crew tasks, worked his way up. Now he runs his own schedule. Calls me from time to time from whatever boiler room he's stuck in. "Think I can swing a lease on a second truck?" he asked last time. I told him the truth. Run your numbers twice. Don't finance with emotion, then do it if it still makes sense. He nodded through the phone. "I'll bring Stu next week." He did. Irene retired from the school a few years back and picked up tutoring at the library. She still wears the same old cardigans and keeps her purse zipped tight like she's daring someone to test her. I bring her coffee once a month and we sit in the back corner near the Spanish language section. "You still butcher half the verbs," she tells me. I grin and say, "Still sounds like the river, doesn't it?" She laughs every time. That woman saved my life with one envelope and a Tupperware of grilled cheese. I've never forgotten it. Dad's watch is still on my wrist most days. The band's been replaced twice. It loses about a minute a week. I don't fix it. I like the drift. Reminds me that nothing has to be perfect to be true. Sometimes people ask how I got to where I am. I don't have a short answer. But when I sit still and look back, I can see the whole line. From that pantry with a lock on it, to that kitchen table with a folder full of forged bills, to that gate on the river where I said no, and meant it. The revenge part never lived in a courtroom. It wasn't security guards or subpoenas. It was me choosing better people, learning how to stand my ground, and walking away clean. If it were you at 13, would you have chosen quiet peace or public payback, and why? Drop a comment below. Even just a quick good story works. Want to support the channel? Hit super thanks. It's optional, but it makes a huge difference. And smash that like and subscribe. It means the world to us, and it only takes a second from you.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.